This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
If your fashion wish list lives rent-free in your brain, you need to be on Poshmark. With Poshmark, you're shopping millions of listings from thousands of closets, each curated by someone with their own style. Vintage finds, designer pieces, and everyday staples all in one place. Search for your favorites or let the discovery come to you. Poshmark makes it easy to find what you actually want to wear at prices that feel like a quiet win. Download the Poshmark app today and use code PODCAST10 when you sign up to get $10 off your first purchase.
The Swift Kickin' Ass, episode 59.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren. And today's episode, how keeping score can help you predict the future. Ooh. Got my crystal ball, man.
Yeah. So are we fortune tellers now?
Well, basically, I mean, we're just talking about, this is the last part in our gamification series, right? And it's about keeping score, right? And video games and games in general, you have to keep score so you know where you are. And we're saying doing so in life and with the stuff you want to change, like goals, right, can help you predict where you're going to be. Like if like your financial goals, John, right? If you have a financial goal and you can project out where you want to be in a certain time, and if you keep on track and keep, score with your goals, you'll be able to predict where you're going to be a year from now or 10 years from now. That's other than that and a catchy title. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. I get you. No, you're absolutely right. If a lot of us, myself included, like to be spontaneous, we like to have fun with things. And oftentimes when we're thinking about goals and specific things that we want out of life, that can sometimes kind of leave you with the impression that it's not fun. It takes something out of it, takes the spontaneity out of life. And, life throws us many challenges and many opportunities. And I don't think setting goals limits you from taking those opportunities. But if you're just going to wander around aimlessly, how do you know if you're getting where you want to be? If you can create small, achievable goals and determine if you are reaching them, you're going to go much farther in life, because our brains are really able to better focus on small steps that are very manageable. You're absolutely right, Tom. When you mentioned my financial goals, I really sat down and I figured out where I was, which was not any fun, listing down all of your bills and everything that you owe everybody. It's honestly quite overwhelming and almost brought me to tears. It felt like, this 1,000-pound gorilla on my back at the time. But what it did too is it planted my feet firmly on the ground. I knew exactly where I stood, and then I started to kind of make a game out of it to figure out, how am I going to move forward? How am I going to pay off this bill? And one of the things too that I used to make a game out of is that, during this time, we were so strapped for cash, but life continues on whether you have money or you don't. And we needed things. I mean, my wife and I were sleeping on this lumpy mattress, which was like putting both of our backs out of shape. We needed a new mattress. We needed, things for the house. We wanted this or that. Everybody wants something. It doesn't matter what your financial position is. But, when you're strapped for cash, you don't have a lot of money to get around. I made a game of getting those things that I wanted as cheaply as I could. So I wrote down a list of things that I wanted or things that I felt that I needed that would make life bearable as we move through our plan, and to put a cost associated with them. So like I thought I could spend $1,000 on a mattress, or I needed to spend $1,000. But as I researched it and as I came up with alternatives, I always found that my expected cost was like 2 times as high as I needed to spend. Like I got a mattress for $300 or $400, not $1,000. If you're creative and you think about things, you can make it work with whatever money that you have. So I made a game out of it, and that's actually what kind of prompted this series about gamifying your life.
You know who's keeping track too? Facebook.
My wife?
No, Facebook. This morning I got one of those 4 years ago today you were doing this, right? So it was a picture of me and my wife Jennifer at the Pan Ams, which is a big jiu-jitsu competition out in California. Well, it doesn't seem like it was 4 years ago. And the thing is since then I've probably gained, I was about 150 something, and I was fighting at lightweight, and now I'm like at 180. So slowly this weight, crept on me, even though I was continuing to train, but I made a mistake. I wasn't documenting my progress. So now I have to almost go back. It's almost like backsliding to get back to that weight again in order to be a competition level. And if I would have been keeping track the whole time and keeping a journal of my eating and so forth like I am now, I wouldn't be in the situation I am now. So keeping score could have kept me out of that, and Facebook wouldn't be, 4 years from now, hopefully Facebook won't be going, hey, Lardass, you guys talked on your podcast about keeping score. Are you still doing it? So,
it's funny. I think a lot of people are put off when you're told to keep score. I mean, especially, there are some things in life that you should not keep score on, like friendship. When you have a friend, you're not keeping score about you do this for that person and they do this for you. I mean, a good friendship is not going to
absolutely. Yeah, you can't keep score on that.
But
does that mean I can't keep score with my wife?
It's not advisable.
Yeah, I know.
She's always going to win, Tom. Yeah. She's always going to win.
No, do not keep score with family members and friends. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about keeping score with measurable goals and achievements, and you can apply it to work. You can evaluate whether you're spending enough time maybe with your family if you want to do some kind of scoreboard in that area to make sure that your life is balanced. But don't keep score. Just know that, hey, make sure that I'm spending enough time here and not neglecting something. That might be an overview, something just to check on paper and go, you know what, this month, I see that I've spent too much time at work, and I need to spend some time with my family. But not, hey, I did the dishes tonight. How come or I always do the laundry. How come she's not doing the laundry? Or she could say, I take care of the bills. How come you're not doing that? That's not good, because that's tit for tat and you'll never win.
Yeah. I mean, that's you're talking about pulling your weight or, balancing things, and life is not always going to be in balance. Sometimes one of the partners is going to do more than the other. Sometimes they're going to do less, but in the long run, it should balance out.
And that happens with friends sometimes. You got to it's kind of a bad habit, because sometimes you'll be like, I remember when we were younger, you'd go out and, you'd be like, hey, or this would happen at work. Okay, let me put it this way. At work, we used to go out for lunch, right? And every once in a while, one of us would say, yeah, I got it. And we'd pick up the tab for a couple guys, right? But mentally, you're saying, well, next time, they kind of owe me. But you shouldn't do that. If you volunteer that you're going to pay for someone, don't expect something in return. It's just a nice gesture. Hey, here you go. I'm feeling generous today. But don't expect that next time you go out that, or you took them to McDonald's, or you took them to a steakhouse and they take you to McDonald's, and you start to resent them, because that does cause resentment, and that's not cool.
Yeah, they say that about borrowing money or lending money to somebody. They say don't ever do that, especially with your friends, because it will destroy the friendship. If your friend needs money or your family member needs money and they come asking you to borrow money, do not rely on them paying it back.
Yeah, give it as a gift.
Just give it as a gift if you're so inclined.
Right.
Because otherwise you are going to put your friendship or that relationship in jeopardy.
Hey, John, I need a gift of 20,000. Help me fix some repairs in my house. You help me out?
Sorry. Sorry. I value our friendship much more than that. That was the politically correct way to say. But talk about keeping score, but really what it is it's an awareness of things. Like going back to your weight issue, Tom. If you put on 5 pounds a year, which is not very much, but over a period of 4 years or 5 years, it's 25 pounds.
Yeah, man. And you don't notice it. That's the thing and the thing is I'm training. I still train. I have not stopped doing what I was doing. The only thing I changed was how I ate, and back then I was eating, a lot less carbs, but I got to that point where I was like, yeah, you know what? I've had some carbs, I've had some food, and I'm not gaining any weight. So I think I'm okay. My metabolism's kind of like set at this weight. Well, it creeps up on you, man, and it happens.
If you were paying attention to it, now, oftentimes with goals, it's really good to put a time on those goals. So say for every year, if you were to check your weight, then you would know, hey, you know what? I gained 5 pounds this year. I need to do something about it to keep it in check. But you, as you said, you weren't aware. You weren't really weighing in. You were working out, and you just weren't paying attention to that, and it sneaks up on you. It's just like any parent. If you have kids, you know what we're talking about. And that time slips away from you. Before you know it, your little girl is going off to college.
Yep, it's already happened.
It's crazy. So there are different types of, this episode is really not only about keeping score. It's not to give you the answers on how you should keep score in your life as you work towards your own goals, because the way you measure your progress is going to change depending on your goals. But I wanted to give you some examples of some things to think about. So we all know about school, and we all know that there are grades in school. Those, in fact, are goals. If you complete a certain number of courses, or pass a certain number of tests, whatever the criteria is, you'll make it to the next grade. That's called a level-based progression. And like I said, school is really the best example. You go from freshman to sophomore to junior to senior to living on your mother's couch or living in their basement. No, I mean graduating and moving on, getting an apartment of your own. Sorry,
I did live in my mom's basement for a little while.
I know. It really wasn't intended, But
in all fairness, they left when I was 17, and then they came back when I was like 20 or something, and I was still in school. So that I took of course I went back and moved in with them and lived in their basement. It was a no-brainer.
No, that's cool. It's so funny because when I said that, I was not intending to point the finger at you, Tommy. I was talking about a lot of millennials these days have a failure to launch. They stay at home. People seem to stay at home longer, and that's that's what I was.
I think I think that's okay. I'm very happy with my daughter's decision not to go away to school. She went to school locally at a very good college, but I am so glad that she's still here, because it would suck if she was gone now. And we give her freedom. We don't. Her room looks like a tornado hit it. And I can't speak because my room used to look like that too. And it's probably genetic, probably comes from my side of the family. But it used to freak my wife out. But I was like, hey, she's staying here. She's with us. Yeah. And of course, it's good for them. They don't have to pay rent. They kind of get themselves established, and nothing wrong with it. It's family, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm definitely not saying there isn't. So the next type of progression that you can make, or the way that you could structure change in your life, is activity-based progression. And that's taking on some activity and doing it really, really over and over and over. And once you learn that activity and you get it down, it becomes a very repeatable process. That's called grinding, grinding away at the problem. My financial plan was definitely a grind. It was 10 years in the making. I expected to take 5, and it took me 10.
I have some good stories about grinding, but they're not appropriate for the show.
Yeah, I do too. I have 3 children to prove that. But once you get that repeatable process down, then you don't have to think about it. It really becomes a habit. But and in fact, some of those things that I learned at that time, I still do. Like the way I shop for groceries, that changed. When we had like $60 to last us 2 weeks for food, you learn to cut corners. And even though I don't have to do that anymore, there are some things I'm just not going to throw away my money unnecessarily and buy some brand name that I can't taste the difference between that brand name, which costs a lot of extra money, and the store brand. In fact, a lot of cases I like the store brand better. But and then also cutting the fat. I go through my spending plan every year, and I look at my bills, and I make a game out of it. I try to not just give away my money. It takes a lot of effort and time and effort and work to earn that money. You might as well get the most out of it that you possibly can. So don't just give it away. Go through your plan, see how you can save money. Like we give up our cable company. We switch every couple of years because we go wherever the deal is. And I think that's it's a good game and an absolutely positive outcome. One thing I do want to say too is that a lot of this sounds like a lot of work. We're talking about being aware of things. We're talking about thinking things through and making a plan and working the plan. It sounds like a lot of hard work, but really it's the best way to promote change in your life. And I'll use bankruptcy as a great example. A lot of people, and there are cases where bankruptcy is the only way out. But in most cases, in fact, there was a study done. It's on where is that? uscourts.gov or something like that. It's a report from 2013. Yes, uscourts.gov. Over 33% of bankruptcies were repeat offenders, which means that they had a bankruptcy within the last 8 years. And that's a huge number. And the reason why so many people repeat that is that the bankruptcy was really an easy out for them. It did not show them why they went bankrupt. It did not teach them how to avoid that going in the future. So, what I like about my financial plan is that it was very difficult, but it was also it taught me a lot, and there's just no way in hell I'm ever going back to that. So, don't put it down because it's hard work. Put it, play it forward because
how do you
learn something.
How do you feel about competition?
I mean, competition can also be very good. That's actually one of the. Competing with other people, you're saying? I think you need to compete with yourself. Yeah,
I absolutely do too. But there are times that think back like when we were younger and we would compete when we were lifting weights or something like that. Something that would motivate you and keep you going. It would inspire you, kind of give you that little extra edge and that little push because you get a group of guys together and you're all working out together or something like that. It keeps you on track and keeps you oh man, John benched this today. I want to try to outdo him. How is that? Does that hurt you or harm you or?
Well, I think it's how you use it, but I think it could be used to your advantage, especially if you're trying to push yourself. In like you said, the weightlifting is a great example of that. If you're trying to push yourself and you're competing against your friend, I mean that's a healthy competition.
Yeah, I mean, I do too because we in jiu-jitsu we do that, and where it's bad is when I'm rolling with when Jen does jiu-jitsu with me, that's where it can become sometimes a problem because I know sometimes like if I submit her and do a move or something or get a good move on her, she'll be like, oh, she'll feel bad about herself. Like, I suck tonight. And then if she submits me, then she'll be like, you let me have that, right? I'm like, no, you earned it fair and square. So sometimes like Theodore Roosevelt used to say, comparison is the thief of joy. So you have to be a little cautious about when you're competing and who you're competing with. But I think it can be good. If we're leading up to a competition in a jiu-jitsu, we actually start having like mock jiu-jitsu competitions in class where we take it from, standing up, which we don't normally do in class. We don't normally always start on the floor. Jiu-jitsu is a grappling art, so they always start, in the worst possible situation. But in an actual tournament, you start on your feet and you have to take the other person down. So we do that. We use the same amount of time. We use the same points. We have a referee, and it gets a healthy, competitive spirit within the school, and it helps you get ready for the real thing. So in that aspect, I think it's good, but you have to be aware of who you're competing with, and make sure that it's not always competing about things that are not like if you compete always with everything you do, that can be bad. Like, for example, one time me and Jen were, another one with my wife, we were on the front yard or front street, and we were going to do a quick little race, right? We're just messing around, and I was like, oh, I can win. So I ran as hard as I could, and I won, right? And what did I do? I wasn't warmed up, and even though I won, my muscles weren't warmed up, and my Achilles tendons, were like on fire. And now every morning since then, I still have like Achilles tendonitis, and that's like what triggered it. And it was my ego and my competitive spirit that got me in trouble.
I think it's great that you ask yourself why you compete, and is it healthy, and is it for a good reason? Keeping up with the Joneses, that's also competition. Competing with your neighbors because maybe they have a bigger house or a nicer car or some material possession. That is not good competition as the way as I see it. You should be competing against yourself to get the best out of yourself. And when you're competing in sports such as jiu-jitsu, you're competing against others, but you're also competing against yourself to see if you can do the best that it's
absolutely against yourself, because you never know who your opponent is. You're going to have all varieties, and it's a matter of the preparation leading up to it, the training, the getting yourself in shape. The mental part is the worst part. I mean, it's scary. I mean, you step on the mat right away, and it's like getting into a fight. It's just that you have someone there that's going to keep from, the point where you are ready to die when you get choked out or your arm is ready to break. You have someone to stop it, and say, okay, that's it. That person dies and the other person's the winner. But you go home, you shake hands, you had a good time, you challenge yourself, you stepped on the mat and did something that progressed you. And it helps you, it teaches you where you're weak in your game. It teaches you, your mental mindset, how to prepare and how to get past, hurdles and obstacles. And, it really is. It's a good, I think everyone should do some sort of competition once in their life, no matter what it is, even if it's a marathon or if it's, whatever it might be. I think it's good in the preparation. It teaches you a lot of life lessons.
Yeah. I think that's true. And if you're trying to better yourself, something else that you can do if you're trying to set up some structure, and get some feedback and keeping score with your goals, you might want to try some coaching or mentoring. A lot of us we lose our objectivity. We're so close to our issues that we can't see the forest through the trees. It's difficult for some people to kind of take a step back. So talking to someone that you trust or whose opinion that you really value can be very useful, and they can help you move forward. I know that with jiu-jitsu, like videotaping your fights. I know I'm probably calling it your rollings or
it's a fight. It's they call it rolling when they're practicing, but it's when you compete, it's a fight.
If you tape record that and see yourself, then you can critique yourself, and you're going to kind of step away from yourself and actually see what others are seeing.
Right. And if you look at any champion athlete, they're not there by themselves, man. They usually have a very good coach or trainer in their corner that's helping them. You know, it's because it's hard. It's hard to continue that excellence for a pro athlete. They need someone there, and that's why, you know, football teams and so forth, when you see they start losing games, all of a sudden they fire their coach. You know, that's not just them being political. It's because they're such a crucial part of the game. You know, I mean, they really are. Yeah. They're like the strategists back there, and they're telling the players where they're weak, what they need to you know, improve upon, how to come up with strategy. I mean, yeah, it's critical.
And, you know, talking about, I think that's great, because that leads us to something I think is really key to, if you're trying to create positive change in your life. You know, often seems Murphy's Law applies, you know, often in our life, that we start making progress moving forward, then all of a sudden life kind of hits you with the surprise and it sets you back. And that can destroy some people. It can really knock them off track permanently. But, you know, just recognize that those things do happen. And that's okay. You just have to keep on getting up and keep on moving forward, and learn from that. You know, enjoy that moment, and enjoy the game at the time, because, you know, life is going to throw those things at you. Be prepared for it, expect it, and then work, you know, learn from it, and keep moving forward. This is, you know, a great opportunity to improvise and to get creative. You know, a lot of times we get very upset because we can't, you know, get upset at situations because we can't solve these problems that we're facing in the way that we've usually solved them before. Like when I was going through my financial crisis, everything in my house started to break. I mean, my refrigerator went out, my dishwasher went out, my little girl, she put a Pop-Tart package in my microwave and set it on fire. You know, I didn't have money to go out and buy new appliances. And I got really upset with it. And I was telling a buddy of mine about it at the time. And he was like, oh, well, life happens. And I was like, what do you mean life happens? You know, I wanted some sympathy. And he's telling me life happens? Like, what the hell is that? But, you know, at the end, what he said, he said, John, he said, you're just upset because you don't have money to throw at these problems. If you had money, it wouldn't be an issue to you at all. You just move on, you know, throw some money at it and move on. You can't do that. It's not an option. So use your brain, improvise. And that's exactly what I did. And I solved problems that way. And I got creative and I got through it. And that's what I think Murphy's Law does for us. It offers us opportunities to grow and think of in ways that we haven't done before. And I think that's a very good thing. You know, they say God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle. And I firmly believe that. We're all capable. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a bitch, really, sometimes, the things that we have to deal with. But if we learn from it, and we can find the silver lining, that's good.
Well, I think that's good. I'm going through a lot of that with the, you know, it seems like, you know, my toilets are leaking. My, you know, my shower has a leak in one of my bathrooms. My kid has to be put in braces. We need to help buy a car for my daughter. So there's all these financial things that are coming up, and it seems like that is like almost never ending. Yeah. One thing cool, John, and I you know, I think I mentioned this to you the other day, is it won't get me out of my financial woes, but it was just a cool thing, is I have this piece of Superman art, right? It's Superman on the frame is shaped like a shield, and it has Superman's costumes basically yellow, and he has like red hair and a blue cape. So it's very pop arty. It's really, really cool piece of art, right? Well, it turns out that this thing, the artist that had created it, passed away back in 2010, and he was a apprentice to Andy Warhol. Well, now this art is like starting to raise in value. And last time I checked, it was like $5,000, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool, And it's those things those little nice little surprises. So maybe that will help me get out of my financial woe, but that's not a good thing to bank on. But it was just a cool little tidbit I'd like to share.
Yeah. So, as I think we need to wrap this up, but as you begin to look for ways to determine whether or not you're winning at your game, whatever you're trying to do, remember that numbers are not the only way for you to know if you're moving forward or backwards. That's quantitative analysis, basically, is what they call it, is when you can attach a number. And bills, if you have bills, you can look at your balances and you can tell month by month, are they going up or are they going down? That's easy. But there's also qualitative analysis, and what that is, that's much more difficult. But basically, it's descriptive data or other type of data, like from questionnaires. Asking yourself, do you like this or do you like that? If you're trying to determine what your happiness level is, that's not something you can really attach a number to. But there's so much out there for us to look at, and sometimes it deals with the quality of your life, which is hard to attach a number to, but you could know if it's good or bad. So, recognize that also is a way for you to get feedback and a way to kind of keep score and say, what, I want to do this because it makes me happy. And I think that's a good way to be. It's certainly not about the numbers. It's not about the money or the material possessions. It's really about happiness, because and the relationships in our lives. Does it strengthen the relationship or does it weaken it?
Absolutely. I know I always keep on coming back to like working out and jujitsu and so forth, but that's just a big part of my life. And it's very easy to relate that because it transpires over into regular life. You can, I keep a journal for like weight training, right? And for when I go to jujitsu and so forth. And you could do the same thing for whether you're dieting or if you want to improve something on your house. So whatever it might be, or you want to change something in your career, it's a good way to keep track of yourself. But, with weights, I always looked at, because I'm trying to get stronger. But sometimes you hit a plateau and sometimes you even go back. And it might just be based on you didn't get a good enough sleep that week. You might be injured from something else. And I always make notes in my journal. If I hurt myself in jiu-jitsu and I go to lift weights and my elbow's hurting, then obviously I'm not going to be very good pressing weight that week because I'm going to be slightly injured and a little bit weaker. But it's the factor if I can just look back and make sure that I'm keeping on track and that I'm there. But I can make any kind of notes that I want in there. It's talking about my mood, because maybe I was depressed that week, and you know what, I just didn't have the energy. So I scaled back my how many exercises I did. But it's a good way to be able to look back through the year and see maybe what things are affecting you. It's just a gauge. It's like a speedometer. That's all it is. But it's a good habit, because if you're driving without a speedometer and there's all these speed zones and you're going through them and you don't really know how fast you're doing, you're just judging, and then you wait for the police officer to tell you. Well, that's like life, right? If you're going through life and you have no gauge, things are going to hit you. Things are going to surprise you. And you're always going to be reacting rather than being proactive. And I think that's what journaling and keeping track and keeping score can help you do, is you be a little bit proactive.
Yeah, that's, absolutely true, Tom. I think that's a great suggestion. I think another suggestion too is that write yourself a letter. And when I say write yourself a letter, I mean write a letter to your future self a year from now, 5 years from now. Talk about anything that you want to talk about. Talk about what you're facing right here and right now, and talk about some of the things that you're trying to do. Write about the goals, where you see yourself in 5 years. Try to talk to your future self, and then put it in an envelope, seal it up, and lock it away. And I think you'll be amazed by what you read when you open up that envelope. It's going to give you perspective, and you're going to be so far, you're 5 years down the road from where you are today. You're going to gain some objectivity, because you're going to be able to look back.
It's kind of like those little, remember when we were kids and we would be in elementary school and they'd take these little time capsules and you would stick some, writing in there and some little trinket, and then you dig it up 5 years later, which I don't think ever happened. But it's the same principle. In fact, there's a website. If you search, I have no idea what the name of it is, and this has been around for a long time, but you can set it up so it will email you in 5 years or whatever time frame you describe, and you can send yourself an email, and at that time, when 5 years comes along, the system automatically generates it and sends it back out to you.
Well, I hope that some of these suggestions that we've made today and in some of our stories help you create a feedback or scoring mechanism in your own life for personal change. We think that it will really help move you forward. And we'd love to hear some of the things that you do and how you move yourself forward. Did we miss anything? How do you show? This is really about showing cause and effect, to say the actions that we take, are they working or are they not working? How do you best do that in your own life? Because isn't that what creating positive change in your life is all about? It's about trial and error and trying new things. And sometimes they're going to work, sometimes they won't. But how do you know? And if you have a good scoring mechanism in place, you're going to be able to tell. Am I moving in the right direction or am I not? I have a quote. I think it's a really good way to kind of wrap this up. It's anonymous, but it just says, keep going. No matter what you do, no matter how many times you screw up and think to yourself, there's no point to carry on. No matter how many people tell you that you can't do it, keep going. Don't quit. Don't quit, because a month from now, you'll be that much closer to your goal than you are now. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. Make today count.
That's good. That's absolutely cool, man. It's consistency, man. Keep showing up. That's all I can say. That's the best advice. I've seen so many people wash out of our jiu-jitsu class, and if they just keep showing up, if they would have stayed with it through the hard times, or took a month or two off and came back rather than just quitting, they would be so much further ahead. And that applies to life. You just keep showing up. I know that in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's one of their thing. Keep showing up. If you fail, you stumble, doesn't matter. Get back up. Try again.
Yeah, if it's hard, it's hard because it's not easy. You need to work at it. But it doesn't mean that it will never be easy. If you keep working at it, it will get easier over time. And just remember why you're doing it. As we've been talking in the last few episodes, make a game out of this. Life is really a game. We all when we die, we can't take any of this stuff with us. So make the moments count, make your life count, and get what you want out of life. Live on your terms. That's what we're all about. And keep kicking yourself in the ass.
Yep.
And keep moving yourself forward.
Keep showing up, keep moving. We'd like to thank you for joining. I'm Tom Stewart, and joining with John Curren. Check out our website at aswiftkickinass.com. We thank you for listening. There you can join up, give your email, and we'll hook you up with our membership site, which has courses, videos, John's simple spending tool that will help you get your life together as far as financially. And it's real simple. Thanks for listening, man. Peace.